Under the COVID-19 page, parents can find information on talking to children about the virus and coping with change. Moving to providers and educators, our page on the use of technology helps practitioners and educators engage and prepare families for remote service delivery and distance learning. It includes presentations from the Peel Center and NCPMI, video illustrations of remote home visits using family-guided routines and family coaching, and online modules from the National Center for Hearing Assessment and Management. For state and local administrators, this page on technology and privacy provides information on FERPA and HIPAA, and additional pages on reimbursement of remote service delivery by Medicaid and private insurance. We continue to collect the latest guidance and information from state IDEA early childhood programs in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our page on COVID-19 focuses on resources specific to state and local administrators, including the latest guidance from the U.S. Departments of Education and Health and Human Services, the Center for Medicaid Services, and the CDC. Additional resources are also included for small businesses, and useful links to other national organizations' COVID-19 responses. We've compiled a list of frequently asked questions regarding the delivery of IDEA early childhood services during COVID-19, which provides answers as well as points out some of the most useful items across all these pages. As states emerge from the initial wave of COVID-19, we've developed a page on reopening school systems, considerations for Part C programs as they increase in-person activities and make infrastructure adjustments to do so. Thank you for your attention. We will continue to work to support state IDEA early childhood programs with updates to these pages. Find us online at ectacenter.org.
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in today to learn more about the great resources produced by the Technical Assistance Centers funded by the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. My name is Michelle Bovens, and I am the Deputy Director of the National Center for Systemic Improvement, or NCSI. NCSI has been asked by OSEP to serve as the hub for COVID-19 resources to support students with disabilities. So we have collected all of the COVID-19 specific and distance learning resources that have been developed across the OSEP PA Center network. So if you visit our website, ncsi.westa.org, here's what you will see. Here's our NCSI homepage. If you scroll down below the banner, you'll see on the left-hand side several categories: COVID-19 policy guidance, distance learning, and telepractice teletherapy. We'll get back to those in a minute, but before we dive deeper, I wanted to point out some of the links on the right. The first one takes you to the Comprehensive Center Network site, where they are collecting resources and materials for across the general education benefit centers. The second one is the Early Childhood TA Center site, where you can find resources for the birth to 5 population. And for links to Parent Center resources, click here to go to the Center for Parent Information and Resources, CIPR, or the Parent Center. Additionally, on the right side, you will see a place to submit questions or suggestions about resources to NCSI. And if you have legal questions that merit a response from the U.S. Department of Education, that link is also provided. Now back to the left. If you click on the first category, COVID-19 policy guidance, you will find links that take you to the federal and state policy guidance, as well as links to state pages with specific guidance for students with disabilities. These links are updated regularly as states add more information for their state. If you click on the second link, you will get to distance learning resources. You can see that there are 4 subcategories, including how to provide distance learning, instructional resources, support for families, or virtual PD. Additionally, there are additional filters below where you can further refine your search to get closer to resources or a resource that meets your needs. The third link is to the telepractice teletherapy topic area, with subtopics including speech and language, behavioral, and social knowledge. This is the smallest part of our library so far, but we continue to collect more resources weekly to fill this out in all parts of our library. As new resources are developed, centers continue to submit them to us so our library will continue to grow. I hope this has been helpful to you. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if we can help you find something or answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Evans-Luiselli, and I'm the director of the New England Consortium on Deafblindness, serving the states of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont. This presentation will provide a brief overview of NEC's COVID-19 focused resources for children with combined vision and hearing loss, also known as deafblindness. At the beginning of our process in the late March, early April, we realized that our original coaching procedures were too intensive and developed environments, very different than home environments with exhausted parents and numerous siblings. In essence, we needed to find a way to help teams focus on strategies that could be embedded into routines the parents were already doing for their children in the land of Zoom and COVID-19. Our primary focus over the past 2 months has been on the development of intervention plans and templates. We wanted to create concise templates that were simple and easy to use, representative of daily family routines, use key components that were the same regardless of the target scale, and included simple evaluation procedures. Some of these routines targeted topics such as greetings, initiating conversations, toileting, eating, dressing, toothbrushing, selecting preferred activities. To begin the process, we collaborate virtually with the team to individualize the template based on child and family needs. Most importantly, we emphasize plans that can be changed or discontinued at any time. We found that weekly or bi-weekly meetings are helpful in addressing what's working, what's not, and making timely revisions. This work is ongoing, and we've been adapting and changing our series of templates. One might ask how these intervention plans are different for those developed for other children with special needs. From our perspective, working with children who are deafblind, their families, and service providers, the primary factors are around determining the sensory supports necessary to enhance the child's access to learning. That being vision, hearing, tactile motor accommodations, and approaches. Here's the basic structure of each intervention plan template that is individualized for the child and family with 4 key components: initial considerations such as learning history, sensory supports, materials, the actual steps of the routine, and evaluation, whether informal or formal depending on the situation. In terms of final thoughts and final plans, we are continuing to build a collection of intervention plan templates focused on daily routines that can be used across a variety of children's situations, families, and cultures. Our hope is that these intervention plans will soon be used back in the classroom and continued at home. Through this journey during COVID-19, we have learned that simple, concise information is certainly better. And along the way, several parents have expressed a new willingness to address home-based routines while others are overwhelmed with Zoom meetings and not enough time to regroup and care for themselves. It's a delicate balance, and our families and teams inform our decision-making every day, and for that, we're very grateful. Thank you.
To support educators, families, youth, and related stakeholders during the recent COVID-19 pandemic, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, NTAC, presented a series of webinars in collaboration with our partners from the Workforce Innovation and Technical Assistance Center, WINTAC, related to distance and virtual learning. The focus of the April 7th webinar was employment preparation and work-based learning experiences in a virtual world. The April 14th webinar addressed strategies and resources for students with complex support needs in distance learning environments. Both of these closed captioned webinars are located on the Transition Coalition website, transitioncoalition.org, under the Ask the Expert section, or by clicking on the links provided on this slide. Each of these presentations also include a copy of the PowerPoint and related resources. The webinar on work-based learning experiences in a virtual world included information regarding maintaining effective partnerships, coordination and delivery of work-based learning experiences, and activities and resources for implementing remote work-based learning experiences. The session focused on students with complex support needs, included a discussion regarding supportive decision-making, guidance for families, strategies for educators, employment preparation and engagement strategies, and healthcare considerations. After viewing either of these webinars, if you're interested, you can participate in an ongoing discussion regarding these topics on the Transition Coalition website. If you are interested in additional materials associated with these webinars, including a related question and answer document, please visit the COVID-19 resources page on the NCAG website, transitionta.org. AIM Center resources for remote learning. The AIM Center has you covered if you're looking for resources to support students who need accessible materials and technologies while they're learning remotely during the COVID-19 crisis. To get started, go to our website at aem.cas.org. Near the top of the page, select the link "We are here to help" under the AIM for Remote Learning section. This will take you to the Resources for Access and Distance Education page, which provides a nice entry point to the many resources available on the AIM Center website. For example, their accessibility practices for teachers, you'll find AIM Center resources around specific topics, such as reading supports, the creation of high-quality and accessible video to support instruction, creating accessible documents, and making math accessible. And we'll continue adding to this list of topics in the future as more resources are developed. This page also includes the latest guidance from the U.S. Department of Education, links to different contacts within each state where more information about accessible educational materials and assistive technology can be located, information about other OSIP-funded centers that can be resources for families and learners, and finally, we have a section called Continuing Conversations, where we link to a number of resources that we found helpful from the web. Let's take a look at some of these resources in more detail. The Personalizing the Reading Experience section of our website has detailed information on the many options that are available to learners and families to customize their reading environments on the devices that many of them already have available at home. Throughout this section, there are a number of embedded videos that show step-by-step directions for how to use the built-in features, apps, and extensions discussed in the text. And these videos are closed captioned for accessibility. The Creating Accessible Documents page shows how, with a few simple steps, educators can create accessible resources that will work well with the technologies that learners are using in their home. And this page also has a number of videos available that demonstrate step-by-step directions for how to implement each accessibility best practice. There are many more resources for you to explore on our website, and you can use our robust search feature to look for topics that are of specific interest to you. Our website is aem.cas.org, and we welcome you to reach out to us if you have any questions at any time. Our email address is aem@cas.org.
Hi, I'm Lisa Fox, and I'm the Principal Investigator for the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations, funded by the Office of Special Education Programs. The National Center for Model Innovations builds the capacity of states, programs, and personnel to implement a multi-tiered system of support for promoting young children's social, emotional, and behavioral development. We are a source of materials that can assist professionals as they support families during COVID-19. One resource that our teachers of preschool classrooms requested was for guidance on how to conduct calls with families that are family-centered, helpful, and organized for providing families with information on guiding their child's learning in responding to social, emotional, and behavioral needs. This fact sheet provides a structure for those calls. A resource that provides important messages for families of young children is the tips for supporting yourself during the pandemic. These strategies are organized around families noticing their feelings, ways to stay calm, seeking support, being careful about what information young children are exposed to, and developing routines and expectations that will be supportive for the child and the family.
Trying to find out if we can find an accommodation to get everybody on board. If not, we'll vote next week. And Mr. Wilson will be held over the circuit judge for the Fifth Circuit.
Teaching children self-regulation skills.
I tell you what, we got two matters on the agenda. Mr. Walker, United States District Judge for the District of Columbia, and the subpoena authorization. I don't know if we have enough to do business yet, but I thought I'd make a bit of an opening statement here. Here's where I'm going and what I'm trying to accomplish. I thought it was important.
The problem solver scripted story helps children learn problem solving skills and select solutions. We offer a solution kit for families within the book. And we have a calm down chart that helps children select appropriate calm down strategies when they have strong emotions. I hope you will take the time to view and share these resources and sign up for our newsletter or follow us on social media so that you can learn about the new resources as they are posted. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lazarus, and I'm the director of TIES Center, which is the National Technical Assistance Center on Inclusive Practices and Policies for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. Today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the new distance learning series the TIES Center has developed. These are a whole set of electronic publications that provide lots of things that we hope was helpful during distance learning. The items in these series are designed to help students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, physicians, engage fully in academics online, and interact with their teachers and peers. There's currently a number of resources already available, and we are continually adding additional ones. They are all available on the TIES website, tiescenter.org, and check back regularly for the new resources. Today, I'd like to highlight two of these resources. The first one I want to tell you a little bit about is one titled Effective Specially Designed Instruction Within the Distance Learning Environment. What in the world does it look like? This resource is designed to help educators as they grapple with some of the many questions that are out there right now related to specially designed instruction. It provides a number of tips for educators on providing specially designed instruction with both high-tech and low-tech options. The resource also talks a little bit about how to collect data in an online distance learning environment, and while recognizing that data may not look exactly the same as it has in the past. The other resource that I'd like to tell you just a little bit about is one titled Getting Unstuck, Tips to Help Your Child If They Get Stuck with Their Remote Learning. This resource is for parents, and as with all kids, children with significant cognitive disabilities sometimes get frustrated with distance learning, and they get stuck. This resource is designed to help them get unstuck by offering strategies and tips for parents to support their children through the distance learning experience. Please check out all the resources we have available at www.tiescenter.org. www.thaiCenter.org, and thank you.
The next resource is specific for distance learning or remote instruction. How do we take those good PBIS practices once again and think about using that for remote learning? And so as we do that, what we want to do is we walk you through how to build a teaching matrix or an expectations matrix for distance learning or distance instruction. So some of the quick tips that we've got is number one, keep your same school-wide expectation. We want to keep some consistency. This is going to be especially important for students who are used to different expectations for their behavior at home, and they're not used to doing as much schoolwork or school-related things. And so being able to give that consistent language across is going to be particularly helpful. So then one of the things you see, instead of settings across the school, you've got different routines. Entering class, teacher-led whole group if you're doing that, one-on-one instruction and small group activities. And one of the things that we think is really important is that you think about, number one, what are the online specific behaviors that you need to teach? Whether that's how to use your audio, what are expectations for using video, and so on. But also, how do you kind of recreate online some of the important social and teacher-student connections systems that you have at school? So, what does it look like? Think about what does it look like to greet students at the door when they come in online, or when you're doing a morning meeting with students, figuring out how to replicate that so you can have those positive student-teacher interactions. And then a few tips in moving forward. Number one is figuring out how to take those same evidence-based practices that you use for instruction, whether that be opportunities to respond, whether that be figuring out how you're going to deliver specific praise to the whole group, how you're going to do that in that, thinking about how to respond to student behavior, because we know that if you kick a student out of your online instruction or distance instruction, there is an incredibly high likelihood that they will not log back in the next time you want them back in. So excluding students more than ever is completely ineffective in getting students to attend.
Hello, I'm Deborah Jennings, and welcome to the ParentCenter.org. I am pleased to share with you a collection of resources developed in response to the coronavirus pandemic by the Center for Parent Information and Resources in partnership with 5 centers funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. These centers are CADRE, the National Center for Systemic Improvement, the Progress Center, and our colleagues at FND and the Wisconsin Facet's parent centers. As a result of school closures and physical distancing, holding in-person meetings has not been advisable, but that doesn't mean that important meetings, including meetings related to IEPs, mediation, resolution sessions, and due process hearings can't happen. Individuals are coming together to meet virtually using conference calls or web-based platforms like Google Meets, Zoom, Skype, Teams, and others for all kinds of meetings, including those related to students' individualized education programs. We hope the tools in this collection are helpful to all who host or participate in virtual meetings. On our Virtual IEP Meeting Tip Sheets webpage, you will find first an infographic on participating in virtual meetings. This resource gives you technology tips, suggestions for what to do before the meeting, and participation tips, all on this handy one-pager. You will also find a resource which includes 5 virtual IEP meeting tip sheets for both hosts and participants. In addition to suggestions for minimizing technology aggravations, There are also recommendations to use before, during, and after that will help meetings be effective. It also includes links to student rights to privacy resources. Finally, for your convenience, we have a sample virtual meeting agenda available in English and Spanish. This one-pager suggests an agenda for a 60-minute meeting. It describes possible roles for members, it offers some meeting norms, and lists topics to cover during the meeting, along with suggested times to devote to each topic. These guides and tip sheets are part of a comprehensive suite of resources on the Parent Center Hub's COVID-19 webpage.
My dearest sister Virginia, our local Safer at Home initiative has been extended yet again, and there is, I fear, no end in sight. With the children's school closed, it has fallen to Jonathan and myself to see to their learning. This has proven more easily said than done. As we strive to support their education, we are beset by woes on all sides. This day, the Wi-Fi bombs out. Another day, the children are distracted and quarreling amongst themselves. Jonathan speaks loudly into his phone during virtual reading class, and twice has wandered before the camera in naught but a bathing towel, such that we are the talk of all the town. I fear our fortitude has weakened. Twice I have plunked the children down in front of the television with a bucket of silly dough and called it art class. Whatever can we do? If only there were help from our friends at the IRIS Center.
In fact, there is. Created with our module, Parents Supporting Learning During the COVID-19 Pandemic, is designed to lend a helping hand during a time of shared uncertainty and anxiety about the future. Let's have a closer look. Beginning with a challenge video that parents tell us connects with what many of them are facing right now. The resource is then broken into specific topic areas, allowing parents to quickly navigate to whatever interests them most. Whether it be learning more about their role in supporting their children's learning at home, information about reading and mathematics instruction, or maintaining social and emotional well-being. The resources here are presented in a way that is easy to read, non-technical, and encouraging. Each section addresses common challenges and others for meeting and overcoming them. Page 1 of the module emphasizes that supporting learning does not mean parents have to take on the role of the teacher, recreate the school day, or teach an entire lesson. Page 2 offers practical tips for creating learning spaces and also maintaining expectations for behavior. And although students with special learning needs are addressed throughout the module, page 7 is specifically for the parents of children with disabilities. Regardless of the topic, this module reminds parents to adapt and make changes as needed. If something didn't work, it's okay to try something else. It may take several tries to figure everything out. That's normal. Parents Supporting Learning During the COVID-19 Pandemic is a helpful resource. It's also a reminder of the things that bind us together as people, concern for our children, and an understanding of the vital importance of their continued education and well-being, even in unfamiliar circumstances. In the end, what we lean on is one another.
Thank you to all of the OSEP centers for sharing these resources and strategies, and to all our engaged stakeholders for joining us today. We had an extraordinary response to this offering, and we are already working to develop future webinars that will highlight additional resources and share how they are being used. Our purpose and future ones is to highlight some of the resources our funded centers have produced to support the incredible work of teachers, providers, and parents. Thank you for the questions you have been sharing. We will now begin responding to them. You may continue to submit your questions through the question box. So the first question today is for Naomi from the IRIS Center. This question addresses a concern from many teachers and parents. The IRIS module, but I'm already pressed for time. Do I have to work through the entire module, or do I have to do the module all in one setting?
So those are great questions. With regards to the first one, the answer is no, you do not need to work through the entire module. But before I go further, I know that a lot of the folks who are watching are familiar with IRIS, and they have absolutely had to work through an entire module in college or for professional learning on their jobs. So let me clarify a little bit more. Typical IRIS instructional modules are carefully scaffolded so that the learner starts at the beginning of the module on page 1, page 2 builds on the information from page 1, page 3 builds on that, and so on. So by the end of the module, you've worked through a carefully sequenced instructional process and come away with a depth of knowledge about that topic. This module is different. We developed this one knowing that exhausted parents are short on time, they're juggling roles tied to caregiving, supporting their child's learning, dealing with demands of work, addressing health and safety issues tied to COVID-19, and so much more. So we also developed it knowing that every parent's needs are different. So this module allows parents to pick only the topics that are of interest or that they need at that particular moment. So if your child struggles to maintain focus, or you need easy ways to have, say, several children working at the kitchen table at the same time without distracting each other, you can click on the page on how do I get my child ready to learn and work through that page. The module is self-guided and you can only access the information you need or want. As far as the second part of that, do you have to do the module all in one sitting? No, not at all. It's meant to be a flexible resource, something you can return to time and time again. So maybe you've worked through information on getting your child ready to learn and you realize now you need some more information to support your child's reading. You can come back and get that information. Each page goes into, well, parents have the option to go into as much depth as they want. Each topic area provides a summary or overview with links to additional layers or depth of information. So maybe you only have time to get a cursory overview of a topic. You can read through that in 5 minutes. Then later you decide you need more details. You can come back to the module and dig deeper. It's all self-guided, self-paced, your individual needs and circumstances.
Thank you. Michelle from NCSI. As a state leader trying to make decisions, how would I find guidance that other states have made available regarding educating students with disabilities during this time?
Thanks, Lori. That's a great question. We've been so impressed with the great resources that SEA staff and directors have been sharing with each other. There's really no need for anyone to be reinventing the wheel. There's a lot of great information out there. What's currently available on our site at ncsi.wested.org, if you click on the COVID-19 guidance, either in the banner or right below it, you'll see 3 options: federal, state, and state for students with a disabilities focus. If you select that filter, you'll see all the links to all of the states who have guidance that is specific to educating kids with disabilities. That information is updated regularly as states continue to add resources to share with each other and with anyone who's looking. We'll also, hot off the press, we'll have available next week a Google document that will provide links to each state's guidance on COVID-19, the school reopening plans, the summer plans, extended services, continuity of instruction plans. That resource is being designed as Google Doc to be updated regularly, and the link will be posted on our site and shared with OSEP to post with the resources from this call.
Thank you. Kent from our PBIS Center. Managing in a real classroom is often a challenge. We used high leverage behavior support practices in distance instruction.
Thanks, Lauren. High leverage practices are going to look different in distance instruction, but they can still be just as effective as long as we know why these practices work and what technology we can use to recreate them. So I'll give a few examples. One of them is positive greetings at the door. We know that, but you don't actually need a physical door to do that. The most important part in the way that it works is because students feel welcome as soon as they come in. So we can recreate that by using waiting rooms or by using chat comments, or especially as we start thinking about reopening schools, what does a positive greeting at the door look like when we're not going to stand within 6 feet? We're not going to give that fist bump. It really has to do with the way that we communicate. We're going to have to be able to use our communication, our verbal communication, when especially our faces are behind masks when we're talking with our students. Another is opportunities to respond. Lots of ways we can use technology, whether it's chat, oral responding, quizzes to ensure that we're following and monitoring students' progress and seeing how well they're doing. And then another is behavior-specific praise. We know that works because we're acknowledging students' successes and reinforcing those steps towards improved outcomes. Now, this might look like a statement for the whole class. It might look like something provided in private chat. But one of the things that we know is really important is when we look at the research in brick and mortar schools, it tells us that there are some student groups where we don't provide as much behavior-specific praise, as much opportunity to respond. And that's students with disabilities, and that's students of color, particularly Black students, and also English learners. So what's really important is that we use some systems to track how we're providing these high leverage practices equitably across students. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Michael from NTAC. During this time of separation, what suggestions do you have regarding how to best engage students in virtual community-based learning experiences?
It's a great question, and the states are still trying to, come back online and engage their communities and their businesses. It has been difficult, but in the April 7th webinar that we presented, we talked about what opportunities existed and listed some really nice products. Some of the highlights from Washington State is a T-Folio product, which is a portfolio tool for high school age students with disabilities. And the tool was developed with the Washington State vocational rehab system. And it provides work-based learning experiences in one of the units of the online tool. A for-cost product that a number of states have been using is virtual-iep-meeting-tip-sheets.com. And states are using that across the board in their education VR systems. And this completely online resource uses a unique video-based job shadowing career planning platform that empowers students to discover, plan, and explore career options. And I know some school districts, LEAs, are using that as part of their ESY for the summer with virtual job shadowing. A few free of cost resources include online career tours and virtual industry tours that the Nebraska Department of Vocational Rehab and their education department created. And the U.S. Department of Labor's Career One-Stop videos and My Skills, My Future website, as well as there's a really pretty cool YouTube channel called Road Trip Nation, and the Khan Academy has a number of really great resources on their website. So I think hopefully those will steer people in the right direction.
All right, thank you. Megan from NCPMI. This is for our young children whose routines have been upended. What are some resources to help families address the behavioral challenges of young children that might be related to staying at home, the loss of routines, having activities restricted, family stress, and all the other changes?
That's right. When we think about that long list that you just named, in young children who thrive on predictability, consistency, and being with their peers, routines have been offended. Our goal at NCPMI was to really develop and compile pandemic-related resources that would help families kind of build upon their capacity to help children cope with that long list of things we talked about that are adding to family stress right now. A great starting point resource was shared earlier in the webinar. It's a handout called Helping the Children During the Pandemic. This resource includes tips that can help families look at what are the prevention things that can put in place right now. Think about like those protective factors at home. Is that also links to other resources on our website. So it's a great starting point. I know it can be very overwhelming for families when they're looking for resources. So it's a great starting point and includes tips on helping children feel safe, tips for planning their day at home, and ideas for helping children have choices and using visual schedules, things that we know work for young children, and also ways to add in kind of a sense of predictability at home, and also tips for caregivers to be able to process those big feelings that children are experiencing right now. So within our center's website, we have a family engagement kind of section within our website that has all of these resources that can help with those tips right now. And they're really accessible, and they're things that families can access and can start using right away. So some of these things are scripted stories, not only about the pandemic, but also resources to help families kind of process the big emotions that children are feeling right now. We talked about the Tucker Turtle Takes Time to Think earlier in the webinar. You were shown that. Those are great scripted stories that can help children right now at home kind of process and understand those big feelings. We also have resources that family can access about talking about feelings, with feeling faces, emotional check-ins, because they're feeling things like sadness, confusion, or frustration. And we also have, lastly, resources that really work on self-regulation and calming strategies. So things like deep breathing, relaxation thermometers, calm down choices, all things that families can access to really help them kind of support their children at home. And we're continuing to develop new resources on a regular basis. So we encourage those who are supporting young children to check in frequently at NCPMI to access those resources. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah, thank you. Cheryl from the TIE Center. People experience fatigue from virtual meetings. For students with significant cognitive disabilities, are there some strategies that can be used during distance education to engage learners when they are frustrated?
That's a great question. It can be really challenging when children get frustrated during distance education. And families may need help with academic learning. Sometimes they feel like they have time and energy to help their child. But there are some strategies that can help a child learn more independently. One thing that can help is to identify the main goal or purpose of an assignment, and then to think about how to be flexible and how to get there. It also be helpful to break bigger tasks into smaller chunks. And then finally, be sure to just find some time to join learning, to find time to have fun together. This time of distance learning is incredibly challenging, but it also can be an opportunity to learn new routines, new ways of learning, and that can be empowering to everyone.
Great, thank you. Deborah from the Parent Center. Many parents will identify with this question. As a parent of a 5th grade child with disabilities, I need more help to know how to help her and her school assignments. Are there additional resources for parents?
So first, let me say, you are not alone. There are hundreds of thousands of parents who are having those same struggles. And so with that in mind, my recommendation to you is that you connect. First, if your child is still in school or there's still expectations for learning, first connect with your teacher the teachers and other professionals in the school are always the best first stop to find out how to help you. They were working with your child for a number of months before school closures, and they probably have some really good strategies and resources that they can say that they can point you to. The second place to connect is to connect with your parent center. Every state has at least one parent center, and these parent centers are staffed with parents just like you, parents who have children with learning challenges, that have children with disabilities, and who know what your struggles are. So do connect with your parent center. You can find them on a list in parentcenterhub.org, find your center. And each of them has really been doing a great job of collecting information about local resources to help families to be more successful, particularly during this COVID-19 pandemic. And the third thing is that if school is out, connect in your community, find some fun things to do, whether it's recreation or some cultural explorations, or community service is a great way for a 10-year-old to really learn and to begin to learn what their role is in their community and in their nation.
Great, thank you. Tracy, from one of our state deafblind projects, strategies have you used to engage parents in using consistent routines at home?
Hi, in our work with families of children who are deafblind, we found that where you start really does matter in engaging families in home routines. And we found the following strategies to be helpful. For example, first interviewing families about what they want to focus on over a shorter time frame. We're all used to these big annual goals. So an initial interview question may be, if we were to start today, what's that one consistent home routine that you'd like to focus on over the summer? Next is offering options. So some of our families want just simple examples of routines that they could work on, whereas others want much more intensive ongoing coaching. And then as it relates to the actual routines themselves, developing those routines with very, very simple 3 to 4 steps with the beginning, middle, and an end, and outlining those routines that include strategies related to the population that we serve that really focuses on sensory access as it relates to communication, vision, hearing, and tactile features that help support the child to engage in a routine. We're also finding that morning and evening routines seem to be the easiest for families right now to address and seem to be the most consistent that they can work on. And of course, engaging siblings within that routine is really important. And we've had some great fun in terms of bringing siblings along, and some of them are certainly our best teachers. And then weekly family Zoom meetings where we connect families with other parents who have children with similar issues has been really helpful so that they can support each other, share ideas, talk about what's worked and what hasn't worked in the past. And then I think finally providing regular ongoing feedback and really accepting at this point that any level of engagement is okay. And that our ultimate goal right now is to provide information and support that really meets families where they are right now and where they'd like to go tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes.
Lori, unfortunately, we are close to running out of time and will not take any more questions, but we will be answering those in the chat. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to get some of our other centers online, but it's time for you to please wrap us up.
Sure. All right. The webinar will be archived at our OSEP Ideas That Work website, and we're hoping to have that up shortly. And then any additional questions that you have that you would like answered, you could go to osep-meeting@air.org. So as Renee just said, our time is almost over. So again, thank you to the presenters and participants. We hope you find the resources shared today helpful as we continue to navigate these challenging times. Through our funded investments, OSEP is committed to supporting your continued efforts to improve services and supports for our infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities and their families. Our next webinar will be held on June 29th from 2 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. We plan to highlight a new set of resources and include some examples to stakeholders putting those resources into practice. So we look forward to seeing you all then, and very special thank you to my OSEP staff and to the AIR staff for helping us with this webinar today. Thank you for attending.
Perfect timing.
Brother, I mean, great guy, great gentleman, great man, and as a child, without no father figure, he was big brother, but I didn't see the little stuff they were throwing out. He was doing the best he can, and the mistakes he made, and I watching them follow him, corrected myself as a grown man, as a teenager growing up, and, you know, learning from him how to be a man, everything he instilled us and taught us. He was doing him, but he was teaching us how to be a man because he was in this world already before us. And he gave us a lot of great lessons. And I mean, one thing about a man, keep it definitely as he is, he Floyd, responsibility. He would stand up for his family and friends, and he's great at that. And I want you guys to know that he would stand up for any injustice everywhere. Can y'all please say his name? Thank y'all.
Brandon Williams, George's nephew. I call him Perry. You know, we happen to share the same middle name for some reason. My mama wanted to name all of us after some of the siblings. Coincidentally, I ended up with George. Growing up, I mean, I'm a lot younger than them, but my grandmother raised me. I didn't have a father figure present in my life, so I grew up in the same house with them. And, you know, my uncles were more of a father figure in my life. With Perry being the alpha male, you know, I gravitated to him. Coming up, I played sports. He did. You know, they kind of connected us, brought us real close. I'm trying not to be sad. This is a lot harder than I thought it would be. I just remember all. I just remember just all of the memories, man. So more than anything, I just want to say thank you to him just for being there, just being a real, genuine person, just being loving and caring, and somebody I can count on no matter what. We didn't have much, but coming up, my grandmother tried her best, and wherever she slept, he picked it up for me. He made sure I had sneakers and clothes and a lot of stuff like that. And I appreciate that. I'm gonna end it with a funny story about he was the biggest LeBron James fan. And I remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the NBA, but the Cavaliers, they came back on the Golden State Warriors in the finals. And I remember the very first phone call. And I told him, oh man, you too happy. You sound like you won the championship. And we laughed about it, and you know, he said, man, you know how I feel about LeBron. I did win the championship. So, and every time we would talk, you know, I asked him, hey, how you doing, man? Good. And he said, I feel like I won a championship. And that kind of stuff, it was just this inside thing we had. So I know him being the strong person he was and seeing everybody come together and just rally around him, extend all of the love and support to our family. And we thankful and grateful. And I know more than anything, everybody grieving and hurting, he would want us to feel like we won the championship. So I'll end on that note. Thank y'all.
Now, please give his family another round of applause. Please show them love. Show them love. Thank you all so much for bearing your hearts. If we learned one thing, the floorboards like to eat. And also, they had a conversation with Tyler Perry, and it was pretty profound because they said, we are the big extended Black family that you portray, Will Packard and others, on your movie screens, because we all need one another. And you can tell this family always needed George. And so it's awfully difficult for them. The plea for justice is simply this. Dr. Martin Luther King said, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really like cooperating with it. You know, T.I., on that video, what we saw was torture. Reverend Jackson, what we saw in that video was inhumane. Martin III, what we saw in that video was evil. And so America, we proclaim, as we memorialize George Floyd, do not cooperate with evil. Protest against evil. Join the young people in the streets protesting against the evil, the inhumane, the torture that they witnessed on that video. We cannot cooperate with evil. We cannot cooperate with injustice. We cannot cooperate with torture. Because George Floyd deserved better than that. We all deserve better than that. His family deserve better than that. His children deserve better than that. Steve, all George wanted from life is what any of us want. As Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence, the unalienable rights endowed by our Creator, Tyrese, to life, liberty, in the pursuit to be happy on this earth. That's all George was asking for, like any and all of us. But he was denied those rights. And we will seek justice in his name. We will all, united as a people who are God's children, seek justice in his name. But beyond the specific justice, in his case, Chris, the prosecution of the 4 individuals who deprived George of his life, we seek a broader, more transformative justice. Reverend Al, a more just system of policing. Kevin, a more just treatment of people of color. Chris, a more just criminal justice system. In essence, what we are endeavoring to do, Brandon, is what my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, said. Make the Constitution real for all Americans. You see, Justice Marshall said the basis of the Constitution is simply this, that a Black baby born to a Black mother, the most uneducated Black mother, the most inarticulate Black mother, the most impoverished Black mother, has the same exact rights as a white baby. born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most articulate white mother, Ted's the most affluent white mother, just by virtue of that baby drawing its first breath as an American. Now, Justice Marshall said, Reverend Jackson, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say, Tony, that's not the goal worth fighting for. He said, I challenge anybody to say, that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we fight for the George Floyds of the world, but more importantly, when we fight for the unknown George Floyds of the world, when we fight for the Trayvon Martins of the world, when we fight for the Terrence Crutches of the world, when we fight for the Michael Browns of the world, when we fight for the Alton Sterlings of the world, when we fight for the Philando Castillos of the world, when we fight for the Jamar Clarks of the world, when we fight for the Eric Gardners of the world, when we fight for the Sandra Blands of the world, when we fight for the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world, when we fight for the Breonna Taylors of the world, when we fight for the Natasha McKinney's of the world, when we fight for the Stephon Clarks of the world, when we fight for the least of these, what we are really doing is helping America live up to its creed. What we're really doing is helping America be the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. But most importantly, brothers and sisters, what we are doing is helping America be America for all Americans. What we want, T.I., is not two justice systems in America, one for Black America and one for white America. What we endeavor to achieve is equal justice for the United States of America. And George Floyd is the moment that gives us the best opportunity I have seen in a long time of reaching that high idea that this country was founded on. Thank you so much. This is the plea for justice. On behalf of the family, the children, we will get justice. We are committed to it. Now, I would introduce you to a man who really needs no introduction, who will eulogize George Floyd. He is a man who has fought for so many families that too many hashtags to remember. And when he gets the call, he always answers the call. Even when the cameras aren't around, even after the cameras are gone. Ask Eric Gardner's family. Ask Stephon Clark's family. Ask any of these families. The cameras have long gone, Tony, but Reverend Al continues to answer the bell when our people call. He is a leader that you see on TV commentating about our experiences, but more importantly, he is a leader who has lived our experiences, and because he has lived those experiences, that's what makes him so effective in commentating on MSNBC about our experiences. And he is going to talk about the experience of the terrible loss of somebody who should be with us today, and that is George Floyd. Please give a great round of applause for the Reverend Al Sharpton. Thank you. I want us to not sit here and act like we had a funeral on the schedule. George Floyd should not be among the deceased. He did not die of common health conditions. He died of a common American criminal justice malfunction. He died because of there has not been the corrective behavior that has taught this country that if you commit a crime, it does not matter whether you wear blue jeans or a blue uniform, you must pay for the crime you commit. So it is not a normal funeral. It is not a normal circumstance, but it's too common, and we need to deal with it. Let me ask those of you that in the traditions of eulogies need a scriptural reference, go to Ecclesiastes 3rd chapter. First verse says, to everything there is a time and a purpose and season under the heavens. I'm going to leave it there. I saw somebody standing in front of a church the other day had been boarded up as a result of violence. Held the Bible in his hand. I've been preaching since I was a little boy. I never seen anyone hold a Bible like that, but I'll leave that alone. But since he held the Bible, if he's watching us today, I would like him to open that Bible. And I'd like him to read Ecclesiastes 3. To every season, there's a time and a purpose. And I think that it is our job to let the world know when we see what is going on in the streets of this country and in Europe, around the world, that you need to know what time it is. First of all, we cannot use Bibles as a prop. And for those that have agendas that are not about justice, this family will not let you use George as a prop. If you want to get your stuff off, don't use him. Let us stand for what is right. Because when I got the call from Attorney Crump, and usually when he calls me, it's not to find out how I'm doing. It's usually because something happened that he wants National Action Network and I to get involved. And he explained to me what was happening with this case. And I'd already heard about it in the media. And immediately I said, well, let me know what you want me to do. He said, whatever you need to do. One of the things, Martin, that I've always had to deal with is critics would say, all Al Sharpton wants is publicity. Well, that's exactly what I want. Because nobody calls me to keep a secret. People call me to blow up issues that nobody else will deal with. I'm the blow up man, and I don't apologize for that. Because you get away too much with hiding things. Honey has talked about y'all putting clothes in the oven to have your clothes dried. Well, I didn't grow up in the third world, but I grew up in third ward. I grew up in Brownsville, and we had roaches. Now, I know Kevin Hart and some of the rich Hollywood folk here don't know what roaches are, but we had roaches, Ludicrous. And one thing I found out about roaches is that if you keep the light off, if you're in the dark, a roach will pull up to your dinner table and have a 5-course meal. So I learned one of the ways to deal with roaches is if you cut the light on, I could run them roaches and track them down. And I've spent all my life chasing roaches all over this country. Soon as I talked to the family and got the details and heard that among George's last words was, "I can't breathe," with a knee on his neck, I immediately thought about Eric Gardner. I did the eulogy at his funeral. And I called his mother. And I said, I know we're not going out because of the coronavirus, but this is so much like Eric. If we could arrange some private way to go to Minneapolis, would you go? And she said, Red Mal, I'm already packing, let me know. Tyler Perry said, I'll give the families, the plane, whatever y'all need, because this is wrong. Robert Smith said, don't worry about the funeral costs. People across economic and racial lines started calling and getting in. And we flew out here, her and I, last Thursday. And when I stood at that spot, reason it got to me is George Floyd's story has been the story of Black folks. Because ever since 401 years ago, the reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed of being is you kept your knee on our neck. We were smarter than the underfunded schools you put us in, but you had your knee on our neck. We could run corporations and not hustle in the street, but you had your knee on our neck. We had creative skills. We could do whatever anybody else could do, but we couldn't get your knee off our neck. What happened to Floyd happens every day in this country, in education, in health services, and in every area of American life. It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, get your knee off our necks. That's the problem, no matter who you are. We thought maybe we had a complex, T.I., maybe it was just us. But even blacks that were broke through, you kept your knee on that neck. Michael Jordan won all of these championships, and you kept digging for mess because you got to put a knee on our neck. White housewives would run home to see a black woman on TV named Oprah Winfrey, and you mess with her because you just can't take your knee off our neck. Man comes out of a single parent home, educates himself, and rises up and becomes the president of the United States. And you ask him for his birth certificate because you can't take your knee off our neck. The reason why we're marching all over the world is we were like George. We couldn't breathe, not because there was something wrong with our lungs, but you wouldn't take your knee off our neck. We don't want no favors. Just get up off of us and we can be and do whatever we can be. There have been protests all over the world. Some have looted and done other things. And none of us in this family condones looting or violence. But the thing I want us to be real cognizant of is there's a difference between those calling for peace and those calling for quiet. Some of y'all don't want peace. You just want quiet. You just want us to shut up and suffer in silence. The overwhelming majority of the people marching wasn't breaking windows. They were trying to break barriers. They wasn't trying to steal nothing. They were trying to get back the justice you stole from us. Those that broke the law should pay for whatever law they broke, but so should the 4 policemen that caused this funeral today. We don't have a problem denouncing violence, Mr. Governor. We don't have a problem, Mr. Mayor, denouncing looting. But it seems like some in the criminal justice system have a problem looking at a tape and knowing there's probable cause, and it takes a long time for you to go and do what you see that you need to do. But I'm one that has been Crump said. National Action Network and I've been involved in a lot of these fights. We started around criminal justice. I did speeches and eulogies at most of the funerals that we've had in this space in the last couple of decades, and led the marches and did what we had to do. I look at Martin III, we went to jail together, fighting these fights, like his daddy went to jail before. But I'm more hopeful today than ever. Why? Well, let me go back. Reverend Jackson always taught me, stay on your text. Go back to my text, Ecclesiastes. There is a time and a season. And when I looked this time and saw marches where in some cases young whites outnumbered the blacks marching, I know that it's a different time and a different season. When I looked and saw people in Germany marching for George Floyd, it's a different time and a different season. When they went in front of the parliament in London, England, and said it's a different time and a different season, I come to tell you, America, this is the time of dealing with accountability in the criminal justice system.
And in the education system, actually. It's no different.
Stephen, years ago, I went to march. I remember a young white lady looked me right in the face and said, "Nigga, go home." But when I was here last Thursday, and Miss Carr and I was headed back to the airport, I stopped near the police station. And as I was talking to a reporter, a young white girl, she didn't look no older than 11 years old,
She tagged my suit jacket. And I looked around and I braced myself. And she looked at me and said, "No justice, no peace." It's a different time. It's a different season. And if my Bible carrying guy out in front of that boarded up church, if I got him to open up the Bible, I want you to remember something. You know, I was late last October to an appointment because the time changed. And I was still, my watch was on the wrong time. You know, once a year, time goes forward. And if you don't, Congresswoman Omar, move your watch, you're going to find yourself an hour late, not because your watch was wrong, but you had your watch on the wrong time. Well, I come to tell you that is sitting in Washington, talking about militarizing the country, thinking that you can sell wolf tickets to people who's had enough of abuse. I come to tell you, you can get on the TV, but you on the wrong time. Time is out for not holding you accountable. Time is out for you making excuses. Time is out for you trying to stall. Time is out for empty words and empty promises. Time is out for you filibustering and trying to stall the arm of justice. This is the time. We won't stop. We're going to keep going until we change the whole system of justice.
Amen. You have to wonder where
Our organizations have called this a day of mourning. NAACP, National Urban League, Legal Defense Fund, Black Women's Roundtable, Lawyers Committee, all got together. Said we're going to have a day of mourning. But then we're going to come out this day of mourning. Because as some of our experts, Cheryl and Eiffel and others that know the legal field have outlined a legal process that we must enforce. Everything from residency to dealing with police backgrounds not being hidden. I talked to Governor Andrew Cuomo today in New York. He says we got to change 58 where the backgrounds are stopped of policemen. We need to know if they stop you, they find out everything you ever did. Why don't we know when policemen have a pattern? We got to go back to consent decrees. Under the Obama administration, they had put certain cities with patterns and practice under consent decrees. From Jamal Bryan to know we was pastoring there in Baltimore, that they put it under consent decree. One of the first things that happened in the next administration was they stopped the consent decrees. We have specific policies that need to happen. Therefore, I'm glad Martin III is here today, because on August 28th, the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington, we're going back to Washington, Martin. That's where your father stood in the shadows of the Lincoln Memorial and said, "I have a dream." Well, we're going back this August 28th to restore and recommit that dream, to stand up, because just like at one era we had to fight slavery, another era we had to fight Jim Crow, another era we dealt with voting rights, this is the era to deal with policing and criminal justice. We need to go back to Washington and stand up, black, white, Latino, Arab, in the shadows of Lincoln, and tell them this is the time to stop this. Martin and I talked about this. I've asked Reverend Bryant to get the faith leaders together. I talked Randy Weidengard about the labor leaders. Oh no, we're going to organize in the next couple of months in every region, not only for a march, but for a new process. And it's going to be led by the Floyd family. And it's going to be led by the Garner family. And it's going to be led by those families that have suffered this and knows the pain and knows what it is to be neglected. And it's going to be getting us ready to vote not just for who's going to be in the White House, but the State House and the city councils that allow these policing measures to go unquestioned. We are going to change the time. Let me say this to the family who has shown such great grace and real level and balanced thinking. And that's why I want them to help lead this. And I think one of the greatest thinkers of our time, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, I've asked come and speak. We need to break down, because y'all don't know what time it is. Y'all are operating like it's yesterday. And the reason y'all late catching up to what these protests means is because you didn't turn your clock forward. Talking about make America great. Great for who and great when? We gonna make America great for everybody for the first time. Never was great for blacks. Never was great for Latinos. Wasn't never great for others. Wasn't great for women. Your own women had to march to get the right to vote. But lastly is the religious side. I was reading and kept thinking about how I was a little embarrassed, because when I heard that George, at this point of suffering this brutal attack, called for his mama, I said to Attorney Crump, I said, well, I appreciate talking to his brothers and them on the phone, but I want to talk to his mother. He said his mother passed. I said his mother passed, but he was calling for his mother. And I thought about it, because I was raised by a single mother. And sometimes the only thing between us and our conditions was our mothers. Sometimes the only thing that we had that would take danger away was our mothers. The only ones that would make sure the food was on the table was our mother. I know why George was calling for mama. But then as I had got that all placed in my mind, and I realized why I was always calling her. My mother died 8 years ago, but I still try to talk to her. Sometimes just dial the cell phone to hear the voicemail of our phone that I never cut off. I still want to reach out to mama. But talking to Quincy last night, one of his 5 children, Quincy said, you know, I was thinking maybe he was calling his mother, because at the point that he was dying, his mother was stretching her hands out, saying, come on, George. I'll welcome you where the wicked will cease from troubling, where the weary will be at rest. There's a place where police don't put knees on you, George. There's a place that prosecutors don't drag their feet. Maybe mama said, come on, George. There's a God that still sits high, but he looks down low, and he'll make a way out of no way. This God is still on the throne. The reason we can fight, I don't care who's in the White House, there is another house that said if we'll fight, he'll fight our battles. If we stand up, he'll hold us up. So as we leave here today, I say to this family, I know that years ago we told them, Reverend Jackson told us, keep hope alive. Then I know that President Obama wrote a book about hope. But I want you to know in my life, there's times that I lost hope. Things can happen like this that'll dash your hope. But there's something that is sister to hope called faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Faith is when you got a pile of bills and no money, But you say he will provide all of my needs. Faith is when you got no medicine in the cabinet and you're sick in your body, but you say he's a doctor that never lost a patient and he'll dry tears from my eyes. Faith is when your friends walk out, when your loved ones turn their back, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. We didn't come this far by luck. We didn't come this far by some fate. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He never failed me yet. From the outhouse to the White House, we come a long way. God will, God shall, God will, God always has. He'll make a way for his children. Go on home, George. Get your rest, George. You changed the world, George. We're going to keep marching, George. We're going to keep fighting, George. We done turned the clock, George. We're going forward, George. Time out. Time out. Time out. Hezekiah Walker. We ask gospel great Hezekiah Walker sing a song for the family. After which, Derek Johnson of the NAACP asked me, Attorney Crump, we're going to stand for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Though that was the time that George was on the ground. And we want you all over the world to stand with us for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and make that commitment for justice in the name of George. I want to thank the members of the Congressional Black Caucus for being with us. Won't you stand? I want to thank the son and heir and co-convener, Dr. Martin Luther King III, for being with us. I want to thank the mayor and the governor and their brides for being with the family. Senator Amy Klobuchar of the state of Minnesota. I want to thank my mentor and one who's fought this fight for more than a half a century. Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson is with us. And his spokesman for Rainbow Push, Jonathan Luther Jackson. I want to thank from the entertainment world, Kevin Hart. He told me don't mention he's here, so don't clap. Stand up, Kevin. We joke each other. Brother Beloved, stand up, brother. Brother Ludacris. Tyrese Gibson, who's an extraordinary activist in his own right. Master P. The one and only, the creative genius, Will Packard, is with us today. And a brother that we've marched together and done a lot of things. He does not just put his name on somebody's petition, he puts his body on the line. Brother T.I. is in the house. I want this brother's one of the greatest gospel singers alive. Is Tiffany here? Oh, wait a minute. I didn't want to announce and say I embarrassed her. Let me tell you something. One of the most popular, outstanding artists that is also committed. I've read her interview. She think I'm old and don't read stuff, but I do. And she's been committed and saying the right things, and she wanted to be here today. And I was so busy joking with Kevin, I didn't even look at her. Let us welcome our sister beloved, Sister Tiffany Haddish is in the house. Well, I'm going to announce all the rest. Wait a minute, y'all don't start introducing folk. I got them all. Let us hear a selection from Brother Hezekiah Walker.
God bless everybody. Let's have some church for a little while. Y'all ready to have some church? I came all the way from Brooklyn, New York to do this for George and the family. The song says, every praise, amen, is unto our God. Let's do it. Come on, let's stand to our feet, everybody. Come on. Come on. Put your hands together. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Every praise, come on.
Every praise
is to our God.
It's to our God.
Every word of worship.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
With one accord.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Is to our God.
It's to our God.
Yeah. Sing hallelujah.
Sing hallelujah.
Oh.
To our God.
Glory hallelujah.
Glory hallelujah.
Is to our God.
To our God.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
Is to our God.
Come on, let's take it up. Come on.
Every praise.
It's to our God.
Is to our God.
Put them hands together. Come on.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
With one accord.
Come on. Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
Is to our God.
Look at your neighbor and say, sing hallelujah.
Sing hallelujah. Oh, to our God.
Glory hallelujah.
Glory hallelujah.
It's to our God.
To our God.
Come on. Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
Come on, my people. Let's take it up one more time. Come on.
Every praise.
It's to
our God.
Every word of worship.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
With one accord.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
I don't care how you're feeling. Sing hallelujah.
Sing hallelujah.
To our
To
God.
our God.
Hallelujah.
Glory hallelujah.
To our
To
God.
our God.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
This is my favorite part right here. Come
like all right, as we remain standing, I want to recognize Clyde Bellecourt of the American Indian Movement. Brother Bellecourt, we're honored that you came. Thank you. And let me say, they recognize someone yelled out the state chair of the NAACP and many of Black Lives Matter, many of the grassroots organizations that have been doing the protests on the ground in Minneapolis and around the country. Movements are about everybody. We don't exclude anybody. Those young folks, some of them organic, some organized on their own, some NAACP, some Urban League, some National Action Network. We need everybody. This is not a competition. This is a movement. And we need to stop our competing and start fighting the real enemy. Thank you for doing what y'all are doing. When I got here, they were marching, and they kept marching. They didn't need nobody to come organize something. They organized, and we're going to stay organized. And I really thank them for their work. We want to pause for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I want you, because of the pandemic, I'm not going to ask you to take hands, but I want you to stand next to someone with the right distance. The amazing thing about this movement, people say they never seen marches all over the country. Well, we've had that, but we never had it in a pandemic. The reason I know this is a different time is people came out by the hundreds of thousands at risk of their own health to stand up. People that had been sheltered in broke out of shelter. First flight I took was to come here in many weeks. And maybe in God's own way, Martin, the fact we were sheltered means we couldn't watch sports, couldn't watch nothing. We had to keep watching that tape. Maybe because we had no distractions, that finally we are ready to deal with this. So as we stand, I would like us to stand together, and I think there's only one woman up here. I want Tiffany, since I was disrespectful, would you come stand with us up here? Tiffany Haddish, so you won't be talking about me in your next interview. And I would like the mother of Ergana, who's mother of the one who originally died of police custody, saying, "I can't breathe," to stand with me and Ben Crump on stage. It's Gwen Carr. Let us stand. Somebody said, Reverend, 8 minutes is a long time. That minute was long enough for the police to understand what they were doing. That means it was long enough for one of them 3 cops to stop what was going on. That means it was long enough for whatever this officer had in mind for him to rethink. As you go through these long 8 minutes, think about what George was going through, laying there for those 8 minutes, begging for his life. Heard someone say, narrating his own death. We can't let this go. We can't keep living like this. Sam Jackson, is Sam still here? Steve Jackson, is he here? Steve, we won't recognize, I was recognizing everybody. We got to stop this here. And we got to, in this time, bring about a new season. Let us stand still. You that believe in faith, bow your heads, or whichever way you worship.
Time to celebrate net. Just understand the power to take someone's life away. It's real. But that happens their life, they have no doubt to live. That's why, I didn't bother to end the screen when I seen the IDEA workshop move into it's just something we all must do. We all must do. Against this oppression. For us, it's just critical that we all know the opportunity to learn. You're just not making it out of here. You're not making it into the system of America. That freedom that I can't breathe. Or that fear for having the same right to have a right to carry a gun and get your own thing. It's some advancement that we're dealing with today. And we all have personal responsibility. That's why we must stand now. We must stand now until forever, until we are recognized as people in America. George Floyd, a man who will be known all over the world because he was so confronted. He had no resistance in his body. You could see as he rode when the officer pushed him in a direction that he couldn't have been looking to get him in his life. Shall we ask why? We all need to understand the reasons behind it. right today. The face is every day. Yet and still we are America's first citizens. How unempowered are we? Or how empowered are we? We shall stay. We cannot afford to go back. We shall stay. Statement was on that mare's neck. Wow, he really.
That's a long time. If we've calculated with the clock here, that's how long he was laying there. There's no excuse. They had enough time. They had enough time. Now what will we do with the time we have? As we usher the family out, please let us take them out first. They have to prepare to go to North Carolina and then back Houston, where we will do the final services. They appreciate you all for coming. Let everybody else be seated but the family. Reverend Bryant, will you come quickly? Give us a benediction. Just a benediction. And we're going to take the family out. Everyone else remain in your seats.
What a sad day in America's history. Well, we have to acknowledge that after 400 and some years, we're still not free. And so it's important that we use what we have. And the only thing we do have is our voices to speak out, to ensure that we have access to the resources that are promised under the 15th Amendment. A right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the rights that every man shares in America. So I'll end this stream for now. I hope you learned something. If nothing at all, know that we have come to a point in time where it's time to be heard and time to stand up. So I'll end the stream and say, subscribe to Darlene Anderson or find me on Facebook, Darlene Biltz Anderson. And I'll see you soon.